Hey guys, welcome back. Man, Jason Aaron, is like, I don't believe there's a direction that he could go with Thor and it not be good. Because I'll admit, back with God of Thunder, when we first got a glimpse into this eons into the future and this older Thor, I was like, okay, this is great, but it's not going anywhere. And I'll even admit, for a little while, I didn't want it to, because I felt like, okay, it's gonna start dipping after a while. It's gonna start dipping. But man, as it evolved and it connected with the Necro Sword and the Thors from different times come together so you can actually see the contrast of who he was and who he's become, it was just brilliant. And you guys who's been rocking with me for a minute, you know that aside from the spectacle and everything, because really with any story, when you bring in Galactus, you've got a spectacle on your hands. But aside from the spectacle, in my opinion, the most important thing to make any comic book or any book period a good book is a narrative that is heavily character driven, because those can be done either with or without the spectacle. And in a time in nowadays where we get most of the time where people just give the spectacle and don't have the story, don't have the character arc, it feels good to see somebody have both. And I truly believe that's one of the things that gives Jason Aaron's touch, that rich journey into mystery, storytelling magic, but instead of just going back and telling the same story, or even circling around a similar plot, by diving deeper into this world eons into the future, instead of only talking about the past over and over again, now it's like we finally have this canvas to where the stories that we know of modern day they're now the stories of old. And it's almost as if we are imagining a future where the time that we know today and the great events that are happening in the present time, they're considered to be the fables and the tales of the past. But picking up where we left off in a previous video with the battle between Old Man Phoenix and King Thor, back on Earth, which at this time is known as New Midgard, a ship arrives, and you gotta think about it, at this point in time with King Thor not on New Midgard, the only people really to defend it are his granddaughters, the goddesses of thunder, who are powerful in their respective right, but in comparison to King Thor, they don't really hold a candle. And that's not to take anything away from them, because over the course of time, they will gain more strength, they'll become better warriors, and they'll reach their full potential. But at the time of this invasion, while King Thor is out in the far reaches of the cosmos, battling with Old Man Phoenix, the inhabitants of Midgard and the goddesses of thunder are met with the arrival of Fing Fang Foom, Mongstorm, Goom, and Gorgilla. And I love that they show up here and play their role, because these are once again like your strange tales, your tales to astonish, your journey into mystery type of characters that show you, if nothing else, they are survivors. And with them arriving at New Midgard, which they have all seen before at some point in time, it gives you this tone with their presence alone. It just says that, okay, we've seen people get wiped off this earth, you're no different. Just go ahead and bow and let's be done with this. And against these four, the goddesses of thunder, Elseviv, Atli, Frigg, they put up a decent fight, which is what you would expect in comparison to like a younger Thor of their age. But when Fing Fang Foom tells them who is their master, and it's Doom. And at this point, man, he owns Disney, Fox, he owns all the rights. He's like the ultimate shareholder right now. He's the Sorcerer Supreme, he's the Spirit of Vengeance, he's Starbrand, he's Batman. Okay, maybe not Batman, but he has returned to Earth and he's come to throw hands. Gold hands, red hands, no hands, you name it. But with Doom's arrival here, it says a few things. And one, like I mentioned earlier, to the inhabitants of this world, the life here that was created through King Thor, when they see the arrival of this guy with his head on fire, the Doom mask, and the CBS logo on his chest, from their perspective, he is like an old god, because they've heard of Doom. And I mean, they haven't seen him quite like this, but they have heard of him, whether it was from the books that remain, that weren't changed by Loki, or just stories told by King Thor, which for this point in time, we found out in the Mighty Thor, by way of the goddesses of thunder, that those are really the only two sources of history that they have at this point in time. But when they try to face off with Doom, and they're really Earth's mightiest defenders at this point, and they don't stand a chance, because Doom uses his sorcery, binds them in chains, and that's it. And immediately after, he tells Fing Fang Foom to take the others and pretty much cleanse the earth, and just rid it of all life that Thor had brought to New Midgard. And mainly because he believes that this future has no place for mortals. Which is kind of messed up, because once he becomes like a one-man Avenger, it's like you just forget where you came from. But it's cool, I remember that. But it's at this moment that he's met with the arrival of both Old Man Phoenix and King Thor, who have settled their differences rather violently. And I gotta say, even though I didn't see the whole thing with Doom coming. But at the moment when King Thor first met Old Man Phoenix, I knew King Thor was going to ask for his help to provide an afterlife for his people, because as of right now, when they die, they're just gone. But I knew for whatever reason they would fight, because it's King Thor and Old Man Phoenix. And eventually somehow they would work that out, which they did. And it's really because it came down to the point of where they couldn't kill each other, so it's like they might as well get along. And on Logan's end, it was really because the Phoenix Force, she refused to kill Thor, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But as a result of this stalemate, if you will, the old friend had came back on both ends. But with the two of them versus Doom, it is insane, because you actually get to see how powerful this Doom is, man. Because Old Man Phoenix says it himself. He's like, this guy is a one-man Avenger, and the two of them fighting against him is like fighting against an entire team. And if you think about it, having all these powers is one thing, but it's all these powers given to Doom. Like, just keep that in mind. And what is insane but pretty brilliant is that Doom breathes the fire of the spirit of vengeance, and he burns the avatar, that is Logan, away, leaving the Phoenix Force to just a pile of adamantium bones. And when he binds King Thor, preparing to give him the penance stare. And keep in mind, we are eons into the future, and King Thor is the oldest god alive. So when you go back and add up all the people he's slain, and with Doom as a spirit of vengeance, this probably ain't even gotta be innocent blood at this point. Doom finally found a way to make it bloodshed, period. And it almost seemed for a minute like even Doom was like, okay, that's too much. And this is coming from a guy who stripped Wolverine down to the bone, which by the way reminds me a lot of the 1610 Ultimatum, like back when we were talking about James Hudson and from the 1610 universe and his father, that Wolverine, when Magneto caused Iron Man and Cyclops pretty much to blast the life off of him. This very much takes me back to that, and very much in the sense of even Wolverine being a pile of bones left with a little bit of meat on the bone, but barely any life left in him. He still comes back for one last stab. And in this future, these old bones still gotta fight. And when you truly think about it, and just the basis of Wolverine's healing factor, and it basing on him regenerating from what's left of him, it's like you really gotta get down to the bone marrow to get rid of this guy. But seeing him come back even in this very similar way to what we've seen in like your 1610 universe, I can't help but think that there's an underlying basis that we may see later on, or even in a flashback to the past, that just gives us a reminder or another reminder of how these universes and everything is connected. Like what will be eventually will be, one way or another. But with Old Man Phoenix really just coming to the realization that they're not going to beat Doom, who at this point is the one-man Avenger. And Old Man Phoenix just takes one last look at the Earth, which he hasn't been to in so long, and very much likely since Loki's destroyed it, or even at some point during the War of Realms. But when this happens, Old Man Phoenix tells King Thor that they can't defeat Doom individually, and much like my theories when we started, the Phoenix Force only chose Wolverine because he was the only choice that the Phoenix Force really had. Like he was the only person with a scratch of life left. But Old Man Phoenix also admits to King Thor that the Phoenix Force didn't kill him or wouldn't allow him to kill him because the Phoenix Force had loved once and had hoped to find that love again. And that quote just really scales back to what we've been seeing with Avengers 1 million BC and in some of the Marvel Legacy teasers, because at one point in time the Phoenix was actually in love with Odin, and at this point now in the future the Phoenix Force looks to find that love again. And in an act of sacrificing himself, Wolverine puts the Phoenix Force into Thor's hammer. And it's funny because Doom is looking like, yo, if I get that hammer though, like he's not even thinking about what he's up against. He's just like, yo, if I get that hammer though, I'm gonna be the Sorcerer Supreme, I'm gonna have the hammer, I'm gonna have the Phoenix Force, I'm gonna have the immortal Iron Fist. But he's paying little to no attention to the fact that Thor has the Phoenix Force and he's King Thor, which is a combination at this point that just has so much potential. Because now that King Thor has the Phoenix Force, not only will his blood bleed life on Midgard, but now those that die on Midgard, they now have a place to go in the afterlife. Which is kind of a gift and a curse at the same time, because come to think of it, like if you just met somebody new, and that's kind of how this Thor and the Phoenix Force thing is going, and this new person who could keep everybody in the afterlife just happen to have your ex. Like I could just imagine Thor going to the white hot room and seeing everybody but Jane Foster. Like, where'd you go? And the Phoenix Force is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh man, like that is going to be wild. But as far as Doom, Thor pretty much punched him into a volcano and didn't come back till many years later. And if you ask me, whatever happened in that volcano down to the center of the earth could be a whole nother series in itself. And it wouldn't be the first time that we got a story where we knew the ending from the beginning, but I would love to see that. Not to mention, I would also love to see a series or even a story, a short story of what would have happened if Doom would have beat Thor, taken the Phoenix Force and started the world all over. But then again, we already got Secret Wars. And as far as for our buddy Logan, we know he's in the White Hot Room. And with the combination of the Phoenix Force and Thor, it is very possible that we could see Logan, amongst many others, reborn on New Asgard, which is also insane if you just start to think about Wolverine as an Asgardian, but he's still Wolverine with the strength of a freaking Asgardian. But either way, that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Oh my god, it's so much to unwrap. But let me know your thoughts and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.